Hello, I wanted to quickly go over in a little more detail and specificity what we're going to be covering in the class. Basically, we'll be drawing specifically from nude models, both in the classroom, as well as from high resolution images that will be posted on our Canvas models, or I'm sorry, on our Canvas modules. We'll be using a wide range of body types and figures, both male and female, in order that you have a broad diversity of models to work from and show you all the different body types that there are. We'll also be working with portraiture to some degree, and also focus on specific parts of the body like the hands and feet, in that there generally can be some of the most challenging parts of the figure to draw. We'll be working with gesture drawings as long poses like this done last semester by a student, and those will largely be drawn from Canvas images that you can draw at home, so you have a good amount of time to work on the poses. We'll also be covering a good amount of anatomy, surface anatomy, we would call it, because in order to draw the figure, we really need to understand the skeletal and muscular structures where they come to the surface and make themselves visible. The master of this is Leonardo da Vinci, with his anatomical studies that he made to fuel his paintings so that they were more accurate and specific. This also happened in Japan as well in the 18th century with these medical scrolls made by physicians looking to understand human anatomy better. So while this isn't an anatomy class, we will certainly be learning important landmarks of the body in order that we can understand more clearly the figure as we're drawing it. For example, in the image on the right, you can see this illustration really nicely depicts where the bones come to the surface, specifically in the rib cage. So these are all important aspects that we'll be covering as we go. For example, here, we'll learn to do this sort of hide and seek that we see whenever we see a figure or an athlete where you can see exposed body parts. You can see that you know what to look for and what specifically you're drawing. For example, the rib cage is such a dominant feature, it often will come to the surface, and you can find it, and that will help you map your way around the figure and give added structure to it. Also, you can see how the abdominal muscle comes down and connects, where the muscles connect from one point and then another point down at the pelvis. We'll look for specific landmarks of the body, we would call them, and how we can see how regular they are from figure to figure, and how, like in this example, these landmarks are all relatively evenly spaced, so you know when you're drawing what to look for and look for how to space them out in the figure. For example, in these drawings, you can see very clearly underneath the skin all of the musculature and the bony structures that show through, particularly in the shoulder blades and in the notch at the base of the neck and the sternum. This amazing drawing by Paul Cadmus also shows this with very minimal line work, but he really displays beautifully this arch of the pelvic bone here, and even the cheekbones, and the knee. So it's like we'll be learning to look and find where we can see these features come to the surface, and this will give you really a really great sense of structure to your figure drawings. Probably the most important thing we'll be covering is looking for proportions and how to find correct proportions, so we aren't guessing at what we're drawing. And using the sighting technique is probably the most important of these. We'll learn about, for example, how to compare one body part to another. Like one classic way of measuring the figure is using the head as a unit of measurement. So you could say the head is generally between 7 and 8 heads high. Or the classic midpoint of the body, a standing figure, is going to always be the lower part of the hip bone, right around here. So you can divide the body pretty reliably in a standing figure right at this point. The sighting technique and using a pencil, a sighting stick to hold up to the figure and line features up is an essential technique that we'll be using in getting accuracy and proportion in your figure. We'll be drawing largely what we would call transparently, as if the figure were see-through, and using these guiding lines to help build the drawing. And you can see that's what these lines are here in this image. These are all sighting lines, we would call them, and they help the artist build this very convincing structure of the hips. Sighting lines also are used as you're drawing to hold up to the figure, and you can also do this with a photograph and line up angles. For example, this artist is looking to find the angle of her wrist right here. We will also be using, to some degree, working on portraiture and looking at the different techniques that we can use to plot the structure of the face, and that there's a real regularity in every adult face really is a very similar proportion. And we will use that to help get proportion in portraiture. We'll also learn the importance of the model not existing in a vacuum, but it's always in a space. You can't see a figure outside of the context of the environment it's in. So that will also be a very important, particularly when we get to light and shadow and how light falls on the figure. This is also an important aspect of establishing mood in the figure and a sense of place. There are also different techniques we can use to establish this through line and shadow and value. We will also learn foreshortening, which is the optical effect that we get when we're looking at a figure that's receding into the distance. There's some optical illusions that we need to learn how to measure when we're drawing a figure in this respect. Gesture drawing will be an important aspect of this course running throughout it. And while we will be doing many longer poses, we will also be doing many brief, short observational drawings. And these are about the big picture rather than the small detail. And this is a very important aspect of drawing, in that the element of time is in it. And it's a really important aspect in that it requires discipline of being present and focused with whether it's the model in person or an image of it, and understanding what you're looking at and recording it without getting into the minutia or small details, but looking at the bigger picture. This is particularly important if you're interested in animation or concept art, because it's a fast way of note-taking and showing to someone where the figure is moving or the direction it's going in. This is an art form almost in and of itself, and is a very extremely important discipline to learn from. We'll also look at variety of uses of line and value in creating the structures of the body, and how to emphasize one area of the drawing using value or line over another. We'll also learn that you each will have your own individual line qualities and styles. So in this class, proportion will always be important and control over it, but you'll have an enormous range that you can work in, and expressiveness outside of that. So this would be a good example of line working in a very expressive way. So I wanted to give you just this quick update on some of the more specific types of drawings we'll be doing in the class. So please go to the first just beginning gestures assignment on the canvas, and there are specific instructions on what we'll be doing there and how to go about doing it.